Today marks the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. Today, NATO completes its combat mission, a 13-year endeavor filled with significant achievements and branded by tremendous sacrifice, especially by the thousands of coalition and Afghan army and police wounded and fallen who gave so much to build a brighter future for this war-torn land.
2015, the first year we are officially not involved in combat operations in Afghanistan, dating back to 2001. Still, 10,000 men and women remain in that country to protect our interests and our facilities, and also to advise the Afghan army. Tony Shaffer is a retired U.S. Army lieutenant colonel who knows the region well, currently the senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. He joins us this afternoon on Midpoint. Hello, and thanks for being with us.
Rick, thanks for having me. Good to be on.
Appreciate that. You know, the United States moving
Sure.
massive amounts of weapons and other military equipment from Afghanistan to Kuwait to prepare for an assault on the terrorist army of the Islamic State across the Kuwaiti border in Iraq. Do you think that this is really more about the much talked about boots on the ground that we could be seeing in the near future?
Well, Rick, the honest truth is we have boots on the ground, and the White House continues, for political reasons, to not admit that our forces are, if they're not being shot at, then I don't know what war is. These guys are wearing boots. They're out with the Iraqis, advising them. There's been credible reports about our guys, our forces, essentially being on the periphery of firefights. So there's no doubt that there's a war on, and we're engaged. The question becomes, how much do we expand the boots on the ground? To be effective, if you actually wish to engage, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs has kind of alluded to, that he may well recommend that we do go in with an enhanced number of military forces. If you're going to do that, you have to be prepared way in advance. Let's remember that any great invasion, such as Normandy, the invasion of Europe in World War II, it took over a year to marshal the forces in England for that invasion. So even with today's technology and ability to move things around, you got to have it within the region. So I think it's a prudent move to move gear from Afghanistan to stage it within the Middle East. I don't believe for a minute we need to have large land armies engaged. With that said, depending on what the policy decision is regarding the future of Iraq, if you're going to consider the use of large land military forces, you have to have the equipment ready to go.
Well, new year 2015 obviously gives us a chance maybe to take a step back and look at the region a little bit. Let's look at Iraq, for example. The soldiers there, are they just incapable right now of trying to push back ISIS militants?
Let me answer that in two parts. First, the military capacity we currently have on the ground is primarily focused essentially on more or less about a dozen brigades. We're trying to help 8 Iraqi brigades, regulars, and then 4 Peshmerga brigades, Kurds, put together a cohesive military intermeshed force. That's the policy. Could we do more? Could we be engaged directly? Absolutely. With the forces we currently have there, and there's no doubt if they were given the green light to engage directly, they could. I don't think that green light is going to be given. With that said, though, if you do engage then more fully, you're going to have large logistical trains, enhanced aircraft attacks. This 12 sorties a day would have to be at least probably 3 times that to be effective. What we're doing right now is sufficient to stop the expansion of ISIS. It is not sufficient to actually push it back and remove it as a threat to the Iraqi state.
In Iraq's western Anbar province, more than 300 U.S. troops are posted at a base in the thick of battle between Iraqi forces and ISIS militants.
Exactly.
Now, the militants have repeatedly hit the base with artillery and rocket fire, and the U.S.-led military coalition has launched 13 airstrikes around the facility. Could the intervention of U.S. troops bring about a much quicker resolution to the conflict, or would we much likely be drawn into a long-term conflict with really no visible end?
We need to determine what the policy is. Is it to remove ISIS, or it's simply poke it until it goes away? Because the president right now has alluded to the fact that he's to degrading ISIS, not defeating it. So there's a big difference regarding both the focus of the Pentagon and the ability of the Pentagon to conduct those operations. Let me be clear on this. If the president decided tomorrow to do an attack, we should be able to use military forces to push it out. But to win the peace, you have to bring in other than U.S. forces to settle that. And that's where London Center has recommended we consider an Arab-type NATO. NATO was very successful in defending Europe during the Cold War. Arguably, it's still there right now to stand up against Putin should Vladimir Putin do something too dramatic. And I think it's time to look at the Arab nations that we've invested in. We have built huge capacity within a number of Arab nations where we've trained the military. President al-Sisi, for example, is a graduate of the U.S. Army War College.
Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer is going to join us right after the break. Much more to talk about. In fact, video of Italian captives in Syria. Stay with us.